Good morning, this is Nathan Lindorf with The Rational Independent. It is a very, very cold Monday morning here in Colorado. It was -11 when I started out today. I actually had to sit in my car and warm up for a few minutes before filming this. But I wanted to put a twist on things. I do like the idea of keeping a little bit of news of the day, commentary mixed in with this. So some of the time it will be a particular philosophical topic. Sometimes it will be a broader project or something that needs to be dove into, and sometimes it's going to be a little bit more of direct commentary on news of the day. I was trying to think about which outlet to look at and to pillage, because there's always fodder for commentary. I was thinking about New York Times, CNN, Washington Post, and I thought, it's too structured. It's too part of the narrative. I'm going to be echoing back in an echo chamber. So I thought, instead, let's take a look at Reddit. Because one of the things that I love about more crowdsourcing platforms is that you end up with a situation where the topics that rise to the top are the topics that are of interest. So it's not perfect, but I figured I'd give it a try. So for now, we're going to do the top topic that I find on r/politics on Reddit, which today is, for some reason, an article from The Guardian on Brett Kavanaugh, of all people. So digging back into the memory banks, Brett Kavanaugh is a Supreme Court Justice. He was nominated and appointed during a very contentious process where he was clouded by a lot of allegations of sexual assault, sexual misconduct, I think drunken, disorderly type stuff. Now, quick caveat. This is a sensitive topic and absolutely inexcusable to, let me just say it this way. I am an actively religious Christian, and sexual misconduct it is strongly verboten for a reason. It creates years and decades, sometimes generations of trauma. It interferes with the normal development, particularly when it's sexual abuse of someone who is still maturing and growing up. It is tremendously destructive. And under no circumstances should it be swept under the rug or ignored. So that's my baseline coming into this. On the flip side, because, again, trying to think critically, because an allegation of sexual assault can be so destructive to a person's reputation. Because, again, you are accusing them of something that people sometimes believe is worse than murder. This is a terrible thing. And so if you are going to accuse someone, you have to understand that that accusation carries some weight, precisely because the people who hear it see this crime as so heinous. So now, with those two counterpoints, looking at the Brett Kavanaugh situation, you have a he said, she said. You have a situation where there's obviously no physical evidence left. There's no real documentary evidence left. This is, I want to say 35, 40 years ago that these allegations took place. And they are tremendously evocative stories. Again, you're talking about, misbehavior is the wrong word. You're talking about immoral behavior from men towards women that is, in certain sectors of college life or high school life, is almost seen as normal, kind of a boys will be boys situation. I have a hard time getting into that mindset where I would say, oh, that's just something that happens, because I went to Christian school with an honor code. It was a private university, and it had an incredibly restrictive behavior. There was no drinking on campus, publicly drinking on campus. Obviously, people are going to do what they're going to do in the privacy of their own homes, but if you're drunk in public, you're going to be probably kicked out of the school. So there was no excuse for that kind of behavior. And there's definitely going to be alcohol playing a role in this sort of immoral behavior, because alcohol lowers inhibitions. Alcohol removes memory. Alcohol promotes reckless, irresponsible, self-centered behavior that is destructive to a lot of people, both the person drinking and the people around them. So these two kind of go hand in hand, and I can't make any kind of factual judgments or statements on what amounts to a he said, she said story from multiple decades ago, from before I was born, if I recall, if I did the math right. So if I can't make a factual statement, how can I contribute to this conversation? Well, one thing is, it looks like what triggers this is the Guardian article that there is a Sundance documentary that is being premiered. That's what's brought this back into the news. And in this documentary, they are covering a lot of the ground that was covering the investigation. They're discussing things that might have been covered up, allegations of corruption within the FBI, within the administration. And anyone who's paying attention to the news today, you hear allegations of corruption in both the FBI and the political administration running things. It seems like it doesn't matter which party's in charge, the other party's going to accuse of corruption, which is frustrating. It's ugly. So, back on the point of this article. It's trying to smear the name of someone who in many ways has reached one of the most respected positions of the land. I mean, a Supreme Court justice is supposed to be someone who knows the law, is supposed to be someone who is very sound in their own personal integrity, someone who is a paragon of personal virtue and dispassionate judgment, who can, using their knowledge and their wisdom and their degree of removal from the political system, they can use that position to help temper the political winds that blow between the different parties and between the different, as the electoral system churns its way forward. In theory, the Supreme Court is supposed to be a step reserved from there. And this is clearly is the wrong word. There's not much clear about this, because the simple truth is there are certain men that are monsters, and a lot of men who are monsters become great liars. And so I can see that this is something he could have done. I don't care how passionate his defenders are. I don't care how persuasive his emotional distress is as he's talking about these sorts of things. There are men that are monsters. At the same time, I also look at it and I say there's problems with the stories being told. There's problems with the witnesses that are making these allegations, not least of which holding on to these sorts of allegations for decades, waiting until it's politically opportune moment to make some waves. That seems a little skeevy. And even though it's slightly more rare from a psychological perspective, there are some women who are monsters too. Although what I can see from this, let me just paint this as a potential picture. Brett Kavanaugh, privileged young man, feels a little entitled, moves into high school and college, has a lot of opportunities handed to him, and parties, drinks a lot. Something that is not only allowed, but in certain circles probably encouraged, maybe even gets a bit of reputation as someone who is a party animal, someone who's a drinker, whatever you want to call it. And if you're drinking that much, you're doing stuff you don't remember. So you can genuinely believe you didn't do something and not realize that you did, simply for the sake of how alcohol affects the brain. On the flip side, you can take, Christine Blasey Ford, I think is her name. I apologize, it's been a couple years since it's out of the news. But the main witness, the woman who alleges that Brett Kavanaugh assaulted her and groped her and laughed about it. And that's a terrible thing. But let's just float the idea that that absolutely happened to her. But it was a different young man that did it. That's possible. It's also possible that it was Brett Kavanaugh. The simple truth is, nobody has any way of conclusively resolving this story. But you can sure get a lot of political mileage out of it, digging it up and churning it around and repackaging and re-aggravating people. I believe the quote from the director is, "I hope this triggers outrage." And that right there, I think, is a very revealing element to this story. If you make someone outraged, you are interfering with their critical thinking ability. If you want to manipulate someone, make them very scared or make them angry, and then they're far more easy. It is far easier to manipulate them. So if you're a gifted storyteller and you have a political axe to grind, and you can put together a package, a video package, a movie, a documentary, in which you can spark outrage, and that outrage makes the people who are outraged more manipulatable by your side, there's a third actor now in this drama. Now there's someone who says, great, I can use this story as grist for the mill. I can use this story as a way to pursue my own political ends. So that's what's on top of our politics today. I think I'll probably do some more of these as we go along. I'm looking for ways to make this content consistent. I have to squeeze it in basically on my way into work and sometimes on my way home. So my ability to produce and to edit this is limited. My ability to expand on certain topics is limited. I have to do the best that I can within the constraints that I have. If this gets some traction, if this starts to grow, maybe I can put a little more time and effort into it and polish it up. But for now, this is as good as I'm going to be able to get it. So thank you all for your time. I hope you have a wonderful day. Please like and follow, or I guess it's not like on Rumble. Please rumble and follow. And I hope you have a wonderful day. See you tomorrow.